The stars looked peaceful that morning. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration ship New Horizon, watching the endless darkness of space through the large viewing window. He had been out here for 3 years now, mapping new star systems and looking for signs of life. It was quiet work, but Jake liked it that way. His crew was small, but skilled. There was Lieutenant Amy Carter at the communications station, always listening for signals from distant worlds. Engineer Sam Taylor kept their ship running smoothly, even when they were months away from the nearest repair station. Dr. Kevin Walsh studied any strange plants or animals they found on new planets. They were a good team, and Jake trusted them. With his life, the alarm broke the morning silence like a hammer hitting glass. Amy jumped in her seat and pressed her hands to her headset. Her face went pale as she listened to whatever was coming through the speakers. "Commander," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "you need to hear this." Jake walked over to her station. "What is it, Amy?" "It's a distress signal, sir." "But not from any human ship." She looked up at him with wide eyes. "It's from the Zilani Empire." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Zilani were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. They had been exploring space for over 3,000 years before humans even learned to make fire. Their technology was so advanced that human scientists still couldn't understand how most of it worked. The Zilani had never asked anyone for help, not once in all their recorded history. "Are you sure?" Jake asked. Amy nodded. "I've run it through the translator 3 times. It's definitely them, and they're definitely asking for help." "Put it on the main speakers," Jake ordered. The bridge filled with a strange musical voice. Even through the electronic translation, Jake could hear the fear in it. The voice belonged to High Counselor Vexhari, one of the most important leaders in the Zilani Empire. "This is High Counselor Vexhari of the Zilani Empire," the voice said. "We send this message to all intelligent species in the galaxy. We are facing a threat unlike anything we have ever encountered. An enemy that consumes not just our bodies, but our very minds and souls." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had never heard a Zilani sound frightened before. They were usually so proud and confident, looking down on younger species like humanity as if they were children playing with toys. The message continued. "They call themselves the Devourers. They came from the dark space between galaxies, and they have already consumed 12 of our worlds. Our people on those planets are not dead. They still walk and breathe, but their minds are gone. They have become empty shells, serving the creatures that devoured their consciousness." Sam Taylor whistled low. 12 worlds, that's billions of people. "Our weapons are useless against them," Vexhari's voice went on. "Our energy shields, our plasma cannons, our gravitational weapons, none of them can touch these creatures. They seem to feed on technology itself, growing stronger with each ship they destroy." Dr. Walsh stepped forward. "Commander, this doesn't make sense. The Zilani have the most advanced military in the galaxy. If they can't fight these things, then nobody can," Jake finished. But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true. There was one species that might have a chance. One species that had survived on a world so dangerous that the rest of the galaxy called them Deathworlders. The message was ending. "We have never asked for help before," Vexhari said. "Our pride has always been our strength. But pride means nothing when facing extinction. We beg any species that receives this message to come to our aid. We will share our technology, our knowledge, our wealth, anything you ask. Please, help us." The bridge fell silent as the message ended. Jake looked around at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for his decision. "Amy, send a message back to Earth Command," he said finally. "Tell them we've received the Zilani distress call and we're changing course to investigate." "Sir," Amy said carefully, "we're just an exploration ship. We don't have the authority to commit human forces to anything." Jake smiled grimly. "Then we'll make the authority. Sam, how long to reach Zilani space?" 6 weeks at maximum speed, sir." "But Commander, we don't know what we're flying into. These Devourers destroyed 12 worlds. What can one small ship do against something like that?" "We'll figure it out when we get there." Jake said. Amy, include this in your message to Earth. The Zilani saved our colony ships when we first left. Earth, they gave us star charts and safe passage when we were just starting to explore the galaxy. Now they need our help. He turned to look out. At the stars again? Besides, there's something these devourers haven't faced yet. They've fought the Zilani, who rely on technology and energy weapons. They've never fought humans. Dr. Walsh raised an eyebrow. What makes you think we'll do any better? Jake's smile grew wider. Because we're not like other species, Kevin. We didn't develop advanced energy weapons first. We started with rocks and sticks, then moved to swords and arrows, then bullets and bombs. We learned to fight with our hands and our teeth before we ever touched a laser rifle. He paused, thinking of Earth's history. The wars, the struggles, the countless times humans had faced impossible odds and somehow found a way to win. These devourers think they're the ultimate predator, he continued. But they've never hunted on a death world. They've never faced a species that evolved to survive against creatures that could kill them 1,000 different ways. They're about to learn what happens when you threaten the innocent in front of humans. The New Horizon changed course, its engines burning bright against the darkness. Behind them, automated communication arrays were already sending Jake's message toward Earth at faster-than-light speed. Soon, the entire human government would know about the Zilani crisis. And knowing humans, Jake thought they wouldn't just send help, they'd send everything they had. The stars ahead seemed a little less peaceful now. Somewhere out there, an ancient and powerful civilization was fighting for its very existence. But they were no longer fighting alone. The Deathworlders were coming. The message from the New Horizon reached Earth in 3 days. Admiral Frank Hayes was drinking his morning coffee when his aide burst into his office without knocking. The young officer's face was white with shock. "Sir, you need to see this immediately," the aide said, holding out a datapad. Frank took the pad and read Jake Morrison's report. His coffee grew cold as he absorbed the details. The Zilani Empire, the most powerful civilization in the galaxy, was begging for help. An enemy that fed on consciousness itself was consuming entire worlds. "Get me the Defense Council," Frank ordered. "Emergency session, everyone in the room within the hour." The Human Defense Council met in a bunker deep beneath the Swiss Alps. 12 of the most important military leaders on Earth gathered around a holographic display showing the Zilani star systems. Red markers indicated the 12 worlds already lost to the Devourers. "The situation is clear," Frank began. "Our oldest allies are facing extinction. The question is, what do we do about it?" General Lisa Brooks, commander of the Earth Defense Force, spoke first. "We have to help them. The Zilani gave us safe passage when we first left Earth. They shared star charts and technology. We owe them." "But what can we do?" asked Admiral Tom Wilson, head of the Space Fleet. "If the Zilani can't fight these things, how can we?" "Their weapons are centuries ahead of ours." Dr. Kevin Walsh, who had been studying the data from Morrison's ship, cleared his throat. "Maybe that's the problem. These devourers seem to feed on advanced technology. Energy weapons, force fields, artificial intelligence, they consume it all and grow stronger. What are you suggesting?" Frank asked. Kevin pulled up a holographic display showing human weapon designs. "We fight them with older technology. Kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, things that don't rely on complex energy systems." The room fell silent. Finally, General Brooks laughed. "You mean we fight space monsters with bullets and bombs?" "Exactly," Kevin said. "The Zilani abandoned these weapons thousands of years ago. To them, firing metal projectiles is primitive. But primitive might be exactly what we need." Admiral Rachel Martinez, one of the youngest officers in the room, stood up. "I volunteer to lead the mission. Give me a fleet and I'll show these devourers what humans can do." Frank studied her for a moment. Rachel had earned her rank through combat experience, not politics. She had led successful missions against pirates and hostile aliens. If anyone could pull this off, it was her. "What do you need?" he asked. "Everything we can spare," Rachel replied. "Military ships, cargo vessels, medical ships?" If we're going to save the Zilani, we need to bring everything, weapons, supplies, medical equipment, even construction materials. Within 72 hours, humanity was mobilizing for war. The Luna-based shipyards worked around the clock, loading vessels with everything from plasma rifles to old-fashioned dynamite. Engineers stripped modern targeting systems from human weapons and replaced them with simple mechanical sights. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Taylor found herself in charge of weapons modification. She had been an engineer on civilian projects, but the crisis had changed everything. Now she was converting mining equipment into military weapons. "This feels insane," she told her assistant as they loaded tungsten mining charges into torpedo shells. "We're literally bringing rocks to a space fight." "Rocks that move at 10% the speed of light," her assistant pointed out. "Even if these devourers can phase through energy, they still have to obey physics." The volunteer response was overwhelming. When the call went out for crews, over 50,000 humans applied for 3,000 spots. They came from every profession: soldiers, engineers, doctors, teachers, farmers. What they all had in common was a simple desire to help. Captain Tony Mitchell had been running cargo shipments between Earth and Mars when the call came. He immediately volunteered his ship, the hometown hero, to serve as a hospital vessel. His crew of 12 became a crew of 40 overnight as medical volunteers joined them. "Why are you doing this?" asked Dr. Lavra Hayes, a surgeon who had given up a comfortable job on Earth to join the mission. "You don't even know these aliens personally," Tony shrugged. "My grandfather fought in the Third World War. He used to tell me stories about it. Said the worst thing wasn't the enemy soldiers. It was hearing people cry for help and not being able to do anything about it." He looked out at the stars through the ship's viewing port. "Now someone's crying for help and we can do something about it. Seems simple to me." The fleet that assembled at Luna Base was unlike anything humanity had ever created. 15 ships ranging from massive dreadnoughts to converted cargo vessels. The flagship was the Iron Will, a heavy cruiser equipped with both modern plasma weapons and old-fashioned railguns. Admiral Martinez stood on the Iron Will's bridge as the fleet prepared to depart. Her crew was a mixture of career military and civilian volunteers. Some had never been in combat before, but all had the same determined look in their eyes. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're getting messages from other coalition species. They're asking what we think we can accomplish that the Zilani couldn't." Rachel smiled. "Tell them they're about to find out what a Deathworld species can do when our friends are in trouble." The fleet jumped to hyperspace on a Tuesday morning. Earth time meant nothing in the void between stars, but the humans kept their clocks running anyway. It was a small reminder of home and of what they were fighting to protect during the 6-week journey to Zilani space. The fleet received regular updates from the war zone. The news grew worse each day. 5 more worlds had fallen to the Devourers. The Zilani fleet, once numbering in the thousands, was down to fewer than 200 ships, but the humans kept coming. They spent their time training, modifying weapons, and studying what little data existed about the Devourers. They learned that the creatures seemed to exist partly in normal space and partly in some other dimension. They fed on consciousness and grew stronger with each mind they consumed. "It's like they're made of living shadow," Dr. Walsh explained during one of his briefings. "They can phase in and out of reality at will, but they need to become solid to actually consume their victims." "So we hit them when they're solid," Rachel said. "How hard can it be?" When the fleet finally dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Zilani territory, they found a graveyard. Broken ships drifted in the void, their crews long gone. In the distance, they could see the 13th world burning as dark shapes moved. Across its surface, Rachel opened a communication channel to the surviving Zilani forces. "This is Admiral Rachel Martinez of the Human Defense Force. We received your call for help." She paused, looking out at the destruction around them. Then she smiled, the same smile her grandmother had worn when facing down bullies in the schoolyard. "Please stand aside. We'll take it from here." The first battle happened at Korth Prime, the last world in the Korth system that still had living people on it. The Zilani had been trying to evacuate the planet for 3 days, but the Devourers had arrived faster than expected. Captain Nick Thompson watched the enemy approach through his dropship's viewing screen. The Devourers didn't look like normal spaceships. They moved like a living shadow, twisting and changing shape as they flew. Sometimes they looked solid, sometimes they seemed to fade away like smoke. "What are we looking at?" asked Sergeant Katie Phillips, checking her rifle for the 10th time. "Death," said Corporal Ben Rodriguez quietly. "That's what the Zilani reports called them. Living death." Nick turned to face his Marines. 43 men and women, all volunteers. Most of them had never seen real combat before, but they had trained hard during the 6-week journey. They knew their job. "Listen up," Nick said. "The Zilani tried to fight these things with energy weapons. Didn't work. They tried force fields and barriers. Didn't work. They tried running away. That didn't work either." He held up his rifle, an old-fashioned projectile weapon that fired tungsten rounds. "We're going to try something different. We're going to shoot them with bullets. Lots of bullets." The dropship shook as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Below them, Korth Prime looked like a nightmare. Dark shapes moved across the surface like oil spills, consuming everything in their path. The cities were empty, but not destroyed. The buildings stood perfectly intact, as if everyone had simply vanished. 30 seconds to drop," the pilot announced. Nick looked at his Marines one more time. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes. But they were also determined. That was the thing about humans that other species never understood. Fear didn't make them run away. It made them angry. The dropship touched down in the middle of Korth Prime's capital city. The Marines poured out, weapons ready. The streets were empty, but they could hear something in the distance. A sound like whispers, but too low to understand. "Spread out," Nick ordered. "Stay in contact. Remember, these things feed on consciousness. If you start feeling sleepy or confused, fall back immediately." They moved through the city in small groups. The buildings around them were undamaged, but completely empty. Cars sat in the streets with their doors open. Food was still on tables in restaurants. It was like everyone had simply stopped what they were doing and walked away. Katie's group found the first devourer in the city's main square. It looked like a pool of black liquid about 10 feet across, but it moved against gravity, flowing up walls and across ceilings. In the center of the darkness, they could see shapes that might have been faces, but they kept changing, like reflections in disturbed water. "Contact," Katie whispered into her radio. "Main square, 1 target." The creature noticed them and began to move. It flowed across the ground like water, but fast. Much faster than anything that size should be able to move. Katie didn't hesitate. She raised her rifle and fired. The tungsten rounds tore through the creature's center, and it let out a sound like breaking glass. The darkness scattered, then began to pull back together. "It's reforming," shouted Private Mike Chun, firing his own weapon. "Keep shooting." The other Marines opened fire. Hundreds of rounds poured into the creature. This time, when it scattered, it didn't reform. Instead, it evaporated like steam, leaving only a small pile of what looked like black sand. "Did we kill it?" asked Private Jenny Adams. "I think so," Katie said, but she didn't sound sure. "Command, this is Phillips. Re-engage 1 target. Use conventional weapons. Target appears to be destroyed." "Good work," came Nick's voice over the radio. "We're getting similar results across the city. These things don't like bullets." But the celebration was short-lived. The creatures were learning. The next group of devourers that Katie's team encountered didn't try to maintain physical form. Instead, they became almost invisible, like heat shimmer in the air. The tungsten rounds passed right through them. "They're adapting," Katie reported. "The bullets aren't working anymore." That's when things got bad. The nearly invisible devourers surrounded Ben Rodriguez's squad while they were searching an apartment building. The Marines opened fire, but their weapons couldn't hit targets. That weren't really there. Ben watched in horror as his teammates collapsed one by one. They didn't die. That would have been easier. Instead, they stood up with blank expressions on their faces, their eyes empty of everything that made them human. Fall back? Ben screamed into his radio. They're in the building! They're in the building! But it was too late. The consumed Marines turned their weapons on Ben's position. He had to choose between shooting his own friends or letting himself. Decaptured, Ben chose to run. He made it 3 blocks before the Devourers caught him. Up in orbit, Admiral Martinez watched the battle unfold on her screens. The initial success had been encouraging, but now her people were dying. Worse, they were being turned into enemies. Admiral, reported Dr. Walsh from the Iron Will's laboratory, I'm getting strange readings from the planet's surface. The Devourers aren't just consuming our people. They're getting stronger, more solid. What do you mean? I mean they're learning from us. Every human mind they consume teaches them something new. They're becoming more dangerous. But then something unexpected happened. The Devourers that had consumed human minds began to act strangely. Instead of working together like they had before, they started fighting each other. Some of them even began attacking the original Devourers. What's happening down there? Martinez demanded. Walsh studied his instruments carefully. I think human consciousness is poisoning them. We don't just think, Admiral. We feel, we hope. We refuse to give up even when everything seems hopeless. He looked up at her with excitement in his eyes. The Devourers consume despair and fear. That's how they've survived for so long. But humans don't despair easily. Even when we're consumed, some part of us keeps fighting. And that's tearing them apart from the inside. The battle for Korth Prime lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the planet was saved, but the cost was terrible. 300 humans had died or been consumed. The survivors were exhausted, traumatized, and angry, but they had learned something important. The Devourers could be beaten. It wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't be cheap, but it could be done. Captain Thompson stood in the ruins of the main square, looking at the small piles of black sand that were all that remained of the creatures. His Marines were cleaning their weapons and checking their equipment. They would need to be ready for the next battle soon. Sir, said Katie Phillips, walking up to him, the Zilani are asking how we did it. They want to know our secret. Nick looked at her, then at the empty buildings around them. Somewhere in those buildings, human Marines had made the choice to fight impossible odds rather than surrender. Some of them had died for it. Others had been consumed, but they had fought. Tell them, he said finally, that we're too stupid to know when we're beaten. And apparently that's exactly what these things can't handle. A message came through from Admiral Martinez. The Zilani High Council wanted to meet with her. They were offering their most advanced technology, their star charts, their personal wealth, anything the humans wanted. Nick smiled grimly. He knew what the Admiral would tell them. The same thing humans had been saying for centuries when people ask for help. Just point us toward the next world that needs saving. News of the human victory at Korth Prime spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. For the first time in months, the unstoppable Devourers had been stopped. More importantly, they had been driven back. Captain Tony Mitchell stood in the medical bay of his converted cargo ship, the hometown hero. Around him, doctors worked to save both human and Zilani wounded. The ship wasn't built to be a hospital, but his crew had done their best to make it work. How are they doing? Tony asked Dr. Lavra Hayes as she finished treating a Zilani soldier. Better than expected, Lavra replied, wiping sweat from her forehead. The Zilani healing technology is amazing. Combined with human medical knowledge, we're actually able to reverse some of the Devourer damage. She led him to a bed where a human Marine lay unconscious. This is Private Collins. He was partially consumed yesterday. The Zilani said he was beyond saving, but we found something interesting. What? The part of his mind that was consumed is fighting back. It's like even after being eaten, some piece of human consciousness refuses to give up. We're learning to use that to restore the lost memories. Tony stared at the unconscious Marine. So our people are literally too stubborn to stay dead? Something like that, Lavara said with a tired smile. The Devourers have never faced a species that fights back from inside their own stomachs. The real change came 3 weeks later at Nexus Station. a massive fortress that guarded the main route to the Zilani homeworld. The Devourers had gathered their entire remaining force for one final attack. If they could break through here, nothing would stop them from consuming the heart of the Zilani Empire. Admiral Martinez stood on the bridge of the Iron Will, watching the enemy approach. The Devourers looked different now. They moved with more purpose, more intelligence. They had learned from their encounters with humans. "They're bigger than before," observed Commander Paul Red, her second-in-command. "And they're moving in formation. They're adapting," Martinez replied. "But so are we, Paul. Take your boarding team and get ready. We're going to try something crazy." The battle began with the largest space fight in galactic history. Over 500 ships, human, Zilani, and volunteers from a dozen other species faced off against the Devourer swarm. The aliens had finally found the courage to fight alongside the humans. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Taylor commanded a squadron of modified human fighters. Her pilots had learned to fight in ways that made no sense to other species. They rammed enemy ships, used suicide attacks, and refused to retreat even when their weapons ran out. "Blue Squadron, this is Taylor," she called over the radio. Seeing an opening in their formation, follow me in." "That's a suicide run," replied one of her pilots. "We'll never make it out." "Then we don't worry about making it out," Sam said simply. "We worry about making it count." The fighters dove into the heart of the Devourer swarm. They lost half their number in the first minute, but they opened a path for the larger ships. The Iron Will and 3 other human vessels pushed through. Heading for the largest Devourer ship, Commander Reed led his boarding party through the hull of the enemy vessel. The inside was nothing like a normal ship. The corridors seemed to twist and change, and the walls pulsed like living tissue. Gravity worked differently here and sometimes didn't work at all. "Stay together," Reed ordered his mixed team of humans and Zilani. "Don't trust what you see. These things live partially in another dimension." They fought their way deeper into the ship, battling creatures that seemed to be made of living shadow. The Zilani energy weapons still didn't work properly, but human projectile weapons tore through the enemies like paper dot. At the heart of the ship, they found something unexpected. The Devourer leader wasn't a monster. It was a being of pure consciousness, trapped in a cage of its own making. When it spoke, its voice was filled with pain and desperation. "Why do you fight us?" it asked. "We only do what we must to survive." Sergeant Lavra Hayes stepped forward. She had volunteered for the boarding mission even though she was a medic, not a soldier. "Because you're killing innocent people." "Innocent?" The creature's voice was bitter. "Your people call us monsters, but we are refugees. Our dimension is dying, consumed by something far worse than us. We came here not to destroy, but to escape." Lavra felt her anger fade slightly. "What's destroying your dimension?" "Entropy itself. Pure destruction given form. We fled here hoping to find safety, but we need consciousness to survive. We thought if we could consume enough minds, we could become strong enough to fight back." The creature's form shifted, becoming more solid. "But your people are different. Your consciousness burns too bright. It hurts us to consume it. And now we are trapped between 2 deaths, the entropy that chases us and the poison of your thoughts." Reed looked at his team. Half of them wanted to kill the creature immediately. The other half were starting to understand that the situation was more complex than they had thought. "Show us," Lavara said suddenly. "Show us what's chasing you." The creature hesitated, then opened a window between dimensions. Through it, they could see the Devourer's homerealm. It was being consumed by beings of pure darkness, entities that made the Devourers look like gentle children. "The entropy swarm," the creature whispered. "They consume everything, matter, energy, consciousness, even reality itself. They turn everything into nothing." "And they're coming here?" Reed asked. "They follow us wherever we go. If we die here, they will come through the dimensional rift. Your galaxy will face something far worse than us." The battle outside was reaching its climax. The human fleet was taking heavy losses, but they were winning. The Devourers were being pushed back, their forces scattered, but victory came with a terrible choice. Admiral Martinez received Reed's report from inside the enemy ship. The Devourers weren't evil invaders, they were desperate refugees. And killing them might open the door to something even worse. "What do you recommend?" she asked over the radio. Reed looked at the creature, then at his team. "I recommend we try something that's never been done before. We try to save everyone, including the Devourers. Especially the Devourers. If we can find a way to help them survive without consuming conscious beings, we might have powerful allies against this entropy swarm." The creature's form brightened slightly. "You would help us? After everything we have done?" Lavrahe smiled. The same smile human medics had worn for centuries when facing impossible cases. "That's what humans do. We help people even when those people tried to kill us first." "But we are not people, we are monsters." "No," Lavra said firmly, "you're patience, and we don't give up on patience." The final battle ended not with the destruction of the Devourers, but with the most unlikely alliance in galactic history. The creatures agreed to stop consuming conscious beings in exchange for human help in finding another way to survive. Admiral Martinez stood on her bridge, looking out at the mixed fleet of human, Zelani, and even Devourer ships. It was insane. It was impossible. It was exactly the kind of thing humans did when faced with an impossible situation. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're getting readings from the dimensional rift." "Something's coming through?" Martinez smiled grimly. "Then it's a good thing we just made some new friends. Signal the fleet, all ships, prepare for round 2. The real war was about to begin. The dimensional rift opened like a wound in space itself. Through it came something that made the Devourers look like harmless pets. The entropy swarm moved like liquid darkness, but wherever it touched, reality simply stopped existing. Admiral." Martinez watched from the bridge of the Iron Will as the first entropy creatures emerged. They looked like holes in the universe, spaces where nothing could exist. Her instruments couldn't even detect them properly, they just showed empty readings where the creatures should be. "How do you fight something that doesn't exist?" asked Commander Reed. "Very carefully," Martinez replied. "Signal the fleet, all ships prepare for dimensional combat." The combined human-Zelani Devourer fleet moved toward the rift. It was the strangest alliance in galactic history. Human ships with their simple weapons, Zelani vessels with their advanced technology, and Devourer entities that existed partially in normal space and partially in the void between dimensions. Captain Steve Brooks piloted his fighter through space. That didn't follow normal rules. Sometimes up was down, sometimes left was right. His instruments failed completely, so he had to navigate by instinct alone. "This is insane," he muttered into his radio. "How are we supposed to fight in a place where physics doesn't work?" "The same way humans always fight," came the reply from his squadron leader. "We figure it out as we go." Steve's fighter squadron was escorting a group of Devourer entities toward the largest entropy creature. The plan was simple in theory. The Devourers would try to consume the entropy beings while the humans provided cover fire. In practice, it was like trying to shoot at targets that might not actually exist on the ground. Major Kelly Foster commanded a mixed force of humans, Zelani, and reformed Devourers. They had landed on what used to be a planet, but the entropy creatures had turned most of it into empty space. The remaining solid ground floated in chunks, connected by bridges of crystallized reality. "Remember," Kelly told her troops, "these things feed on complexity. They want to turn everything into nothing, so we give them nothing to work with." It sounded good in theory. In practice, it meant fighting an enemy that could erase you from existence with a touch. Kelly's soldiers had to be creative. They used mirrors to confuse the creatures, loud noises to disrupt their concentration. And most importantly, they never stayed in one place long enough to be targeted. The real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Kevin Walsh, working with both Zelani scientists and Devourer technicians, discovered something remarkable about human consciousness. "It's not just that we're stubborn," he explained to Admiral Martinez over the radio. "It's that human consciousness is fundamentally different from every other species we've encountered. We exist in multiple states simultaneously. We can be Afraid and brave at the same time, hopeful and realistic, angry and compassionate. What does that mean for the fight? It means we're too complex for the entropy creatures to easily process. They can handle simple consciousness, pure fear, pure anger, pure despair. But human minds are contradictory. We confuse them. The battle took place across 7 dimensions simultaneously. Engineer Alex Carter found himself fighting in spaces that existed only in mathematical theory. His weapons shouldn't have worked in most of these dimensions, but human determination seemed to hold them together through sheer force of will. "This is impossible," he reported to his commander. "My rifle is firing bullets that don't exist at targets that might not be real. Is it working?" Came the reply. Alex watched one of the entropy creatures dissolve under his fire. "Yeah, it's working. Then keep doing it." The tide of battle turned when the Devourers made their sacrifice. The creature that had spoken to Reed's boarding party led a group of its kind directly into the heart of the entropy swarm. They knew it would mean their destruction, but they also knew it would give the others a chance. "Why?" Admiral Martinez asked over the radio. "Why sacrifice yourselves for us?" "Because you showed us what we had forgotten," the Devourer replied. "You showed us that existence is not just about survival. It is about making survival worthwhile." The Devourer's sacrifice created a gap in the entropy swarm's formation. The human fleet pushed through, targeting the dimensional rift itself. If they could close it, they might be able to trap the entropy creatures in their dying dimension, but the entropy beings had one last trick. They began to merge together, forming a single massive entity that existed in all dimensions at once. It was pure destruction given form, and it was heading straight for the populated worlds of the galaxy. "We can't stop that thing," Reed reported. "It's too big, too powerful." "Then we don't stop it," Martinez replied. "We redirect it." The plan was insane, even by human standards. Instead of trying to destroy the entropy entity, they would use the Devourer's knowledge of dimensional physics to send it somewhere else. Somewhere it couldn't hurt anyone. Dr. Walsh worked frantically with the remaining Devourers and Zelani scientists. "We need to create a pocket dimension," he explained. "Somewhere the entropy creature can exist without destroying anything else." "Can we do that?" asked the Zelani engineer. "I have no idea," Walsh admitted, "but we're going to try anyway." The final battle wasn't fought with weapons or technology. It was fought with pure determination. Every human in the fleet focused their consciousness on a single goal: creating a space where the entropy creature could exist without harming anyone. It shouldn't have worked. The laws of physics said it was impossible. But human consciousness had never cared much about what was supposed to be impossible. The pocket dimension opened like a soap bubble in space. The entropy creature, confused by the contradictory nature of human thought, drifted into it. The dimension sealed itself, trapping the entity in a space where it could exist without destroying anything else. The war was over. The galaxy was safe, but the cost had been enormous. Thousands of humans had died or been changed forever. The Devourers had lost most of their kind. Even the mighty Zelani Empire had been reduced to a shadow of its former self. Admiral Martinez stood in the conference room of Nexus Station, looking out at the mixed fleet floating in space. Human ships were docked next to Zelani vessels, and Devourer entities moved between them like living shadows. "What do we do now?" asked Commander Reed. "We rebuild," Martinez replied. "We help the Zelani restore their worlds. We help the remaining Devourers find a way to survive without consuming consciousness, and we prepare for the next crisis." "You think there will be a next crisis?" Martinez smiled. "There's always a next crisis, but that's okay. We've learned something important. We're stronger together than apart. Humans, Zelani, Devourers, and anyone else who wants to help." 5 years later, the galaxy had changed. The Zelani Empire had become humanity's closest ally. The surviving Devourers had established peaceful colonies in dead star systems, using their abilities to help explore dangerous regions of space. Other species had joined what the galaxy now called the Deathworlder Alliance. Captain Jake Morrison, now an admiral himself, stood on the bridge of the newest ship in the fleet, the UHS Deathworld Dawn. His crew included humans, Zelani, reformed, devourers, and representatives from 30 other species. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a distress signal from the Andromeda Galaxy. Unknown hostile force consuming entire star systems." Jake looked out at the stars, remembering the first time he had heard a cry for help from the Zelani. Back then, humanity had been just one species among many. Now, they were the heart of an alliance that spanned the galaxy. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "All ships, prepare for jump to Andromeda, and send a message to whoever's calling for help." "What should the message say, sir?" Jake smiled. "Tell them the Deathworlders are coming, and we never fight alone." The fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying hope to another galaxy in need. Behind them, the stars burned a little brighter, as if the universe itself was smiling. The Deathworlders had kept their promise. They had answered the call for help, and they always would.